The Amped EV podcast is sponsored by Autel Energy. Visit autelenergy.com for more information.
Hello and welcome back to the Amped EV podcast. My name is David Sickles. I am the editor for The Buzz.
And I'm Jason Morgan, content director for Fleet Equipment. David.
What's up, Jason?
Amped to be back.
I am also amped to be here.
Beforehand, we were singing a little Hall Notes on the sound check. And I feel like the band is back together in a little bit. It's our reunion tour, the Oates to your Hall, the Robin to your Batman.
I am the Oates, my friend.
Amped to be back.
I am also amped to be back.
What do we got going on?
Today is a pretty sexy topic, I gotta say.
Can you say that on the air? This is a family show, David.
No, well,
is that a fine? Okay, I don't know.
Infrastructure. We're talking infrastructure. The sexiest of EV topics.
There's like a little rainbow with glitter.
I really hope so. I really hope so. So today we are speaking with Vic Shao. He is the president of BP Pulse's fleet division, and he is talking to us about their Gigahub network.
Okay.
So the Gigahub network will be a series of large electric vehicle fast charging hubs that will be built near airports and other high demand locations across the U.S. to serve ride-hail and taxi fleets. The first site will be at LAX.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, so this will be a lot of fun.
Well, cool. I'm ready to take the pulse of charging.
I think I see what you did there.
Yeah, nailed it.
All right, Vic, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time and, kind of letting us dive into the Gigahub network. So, my first question to you, what can we expect to see at one of these Gigahub networks at LAX once it's all complete? Like how many chargers, are you going to supply DC fast charging? Will there be a diverse charging option for people to use available at these sites?
Thanks for the question, David, and it's terrific to be here today. Thanks for the invitation. My name is Vic Shao. I'm the president of BP Pulse's fleet division. We made an announcement several months ago, maybe it was just last month, in partnership with Hertz, deploying a concept that we're calling Gigahubs. And what a Gigahub entails is a large-scale charging destination set up at or near airports or city centers. And the purpose of a Gigahub, if you think about what is the state of charging, a state of the art in EV charging today, I think a lot of people would just say it's superchargers and the network that Tesla has deployed. There isn't really, and the reason I think people will naturally go there is because of reliability. It's the only network in the US where you could get certainty that your vehicles will charge up at a reasonable amount of time frame in a sort of a bug-free experience. But there's still a lot to be desired. A lot of the supercharger chargers that I've been to, lighting isn't good. At night, it kind of feels a little bit, dodgy, perhaps. Cameras, physical security, bathrooms, convenience. There's still a lot to be desired in the experience. So the thought with Gigahubs are a number of, principles. First of all, it's got to be, safe lighting, cameras and security systems. That's it has to be fundamentally an experience that end users won't just huddle in their cars and never want to leave the car and go outside and stretch their legs. Secondly, same thing as Tesla, you have to have a certainty of expectation that you will get a charge. The way that we're going to do it with Gigahubs is that it's for the most part, it's going to be 50 chargers or greater at any one of these locations, so that the Gigahub announcement that we have made, airports, city centers, it's really targeted at rideshare and TNC drivers. So if you think about it from their perspective, they're making a living on driving. And when you're making a living doing something, I mean, their current experience is um, anything outside of Tesla. They would go to a shopping mall, and there may be 10 chargers that's set up there at that shopping mall. At any given moment in time, five of them will be out of service for whatever reason. I mean, it's the charger operating system is rebooting and they're showing a Windows screen, or the nozzle is missing, or somebody ran over it, and it's the experience outside of the Tesla network has been kind of a lot is to be desired. But if you're making a living on this, five chargers are down. There's a line of cars, 8 cars in front of you to get a charge at the remaining five. Well, I mean, it's, it's too hard. You can't make a living dealing with this, and So again, the Gigahub experience is that certainty of charge, low cost. A lot of the safety and physical security form factor needs to be in place. So I've probably gone on longer than I should have, but I think you get the picture.
Yeah, very interesting. And I have to congratulate you on the name Gigahub, because we cover a lot of EV stuff, and like Gigahub's just one of the coolest names I think we've heard, and we see a lot of cool names, so that's very good. I want to dig into a couple things there in regard to kind of your vision for this, because I think some of the things you mentioned, clearly the certainty is important, but I like this idea of, coming from the BP pedigree of having an experience of fueling, right? And we've talked a lot about charging, you just plug it in and there you go, and what else could you need? Do you have any other details on your vision for this, and specifically in the rideshare application? How do you need to set it up to make it work? I mean, these are, to your point, people that are doing this for a living. They need to be able to charge quickly, maybe make a pit stop themselves. What's your vision of bringing this to market and making work for that rideshare application?
Yeah, and if you pull into a gas station today, there are probably 16 nozzles or 20 nozzles at any given site, and you don't have to go through this pain of selecting, okay, nozzle A will give you this throughput and only works for certain cars but not others, and then nozzle B, it's something else. I mean, you don't even think about it. You pull in, 5 minutes later, you're out of there. And charging just simply needs to get to this degree of user friendliness, or otherwise none of this will scale. So that's really the BP pedigree, Jason, that you mentioned, is that we're trying to create a scenario that's highly fault tolerant, that's easy, that's kind of a no-brainer for the average consumer to use, instead of all of the all of the corner cases that end users out there experience today. I would say the EV charging infrastructure today in this country, it's still very early days. So the standards are really more of a suggestion rather than a standard. All different makes, models, vehicles, and on the vehicle side as well as on the charger side. And there's still bugs in the system. It's not entirely kink free just yet. So you need to have somebody with that level of deep domain experience on fueling infrastructure, right? I mean, that's really how BP thinks about this. This is 120-year-old company. They all that they have done over 100 years is deliver reliable fueling infrastructure. And so in this case, we're talking about electricity, but it's just another fuel type. All of the operational know-how to making that delivery pain-free and highly reliable, highly fault-tolerant is still fundamentally in BP's DNA. So that's the experience that we want the average consumer to have.
That's excellent, because when a company like BP Pulse comes along and is able to make the charging process simple and fast and efficient for the end user, it's always it's nice to see, because I know that the infrastructure end, when you're actually building these and putting them in the ground, it's anything but easy. It's anything but simple. There's so many people involved with the process. So who are the major players that you need to work with in order to make sure that this, a project of this scale goes on without a hitch? And how long does it take from, the first time that you're talking with somebody to actually launching the Gigahub network? Do you expect it to take?
Yeah, I mean, we've deployed infrastructure in as quick as time frame as 3 months. To some of the larger Gigahub sites will probably take more than 2 years. So it's a range of somewhere in between, probably, for most cases. All of the different players. I mean, utilities, cities, and permitting authorities. A lot of the initial sites will be at airports or near airports. So oftentimes the airport authority is involved. So don't get me wrong, it's not easy. I mean, there's a lot of stakeholders that are involved. I think what is interesting about the scenario, and what I think it actually has captured a lot of the public agencies' imagination. That this is possible. This is what is desired, and also kind of unlocking the TNC drivers point of view is, I think, really important for a lot of cities. And the reason for that is because a lot of our initial sites at or near airports happen to be in disadvantaged communities. The drivers themselves are, a lot of them are not living in single family homes where setting of a charger is simpler. I mean, we're talking about condos and multi-unit family housings that we need to somehow get charging there, and a lot of times it's not possible. So having a central, if you think about it, I mean, the best time for an Uber driver to charge is while they're waiting for the next passenger, right? It's the most efficient use case. So enabling that and enabling the community of drivers to convert to electric is actually really important for a lot of the cities and municipalities that we have been speaking with. So I think the motivation is there. However, there is still a lot of blocking and tackling to be done. And typically the part that takes the longest is the utilities. I mean, every single one of our projects requires a new service upgrade. And that oftentimes is a multi-month and sometimes a couple of years of utility engagement bringing power to the site.
Right. Yeah, and that's a common refrain we hear talking to a lot of companies, especially larger scale companies, even larger trucking companies that are putting in some of the higher DC chargers that are they need that power to site. So clearly there's a lot going on in the EV world in California. LAX makes perfect sense for your rideshare application. But is there something that drew you specifically to that LA area? I mean, there's a lot of different airports in California, a lot going on there. Is there anything in terms of working with the city and of LA and the airport? And maybe you have any low-hanging fruit for what's next after California?
Yeah, we have a lot going on. Not ready to be announced yet, though, unfortunately. But for LAX, answer your question, I mean, 2028 Olympics. That's certainly on the mayor's mind. And also, if you think about it, it's rideshare and landing at LAX and then being picked up in an EV. I mean, it is a really good scenario, right? As an introduction to the city.
Sure.
And for that matter, when you are using rideshare, it's oftentimes the very first EV experience for a lot of end users. So a lot of things line up to make this an attractive proposition.
So when, as a user, the first thing that you kind of see is the hardware, but of course it's the software that is really making, the hardware work the way it's supposed to. So I wanted to kind of ask you about BP Pulse's Omega Charge software. What makes it unique, and what makes it the right move for this kind of, Gigahub that you're designing?
Sure. I think a good way to describe it is what goes on in a air traffic control tower. you have you have operators that's looking at a lot of visual screens and a lot of software enabled tools to make the airplanes take off or land as efficiently as possible and as sequenced as possible, right? Because you want to maximize the throughput. So similarly, that's exactly what we're doing here with Omega, is to enable a high throughput, operationally efficient, low cost scenario for drivers. I mean, these are expensive assets, all of these chargers and the infrastructure that we're deploying does cost in the millions. So with the asset in place, then we want throughput. We want to enable as many EV drivers to fuel up as possible, and that just simply requires software coordination to make that happen. So I guess I'll just use a quick example. I mean, we want to create a scenario where a Uber driver, even 30 seconds out before they enter the Gigahub, they get a notification on their phone. Okay, please pull into stall, B7. It's open. It's available for you. It's got your name on it. So just pull right in and plug in. That's what we want to create, right? Is that air traffic control, or in this case, I guess it would be ground control, to direct traffic and to get maximum throughput and efficiency.
Very cool, very cool. Well, Vic, I really appreciate your time here today. It seems like you guys have a lot going on, and it's really exciting for you. I wish you the best of luck in getting this thing off the ground, because this is really cool.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Jason. I really enjoyed my time.
Okay, Jason.
Alrighty.
So that was really interesting.
Yeah.
The Olympics.
Yes.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. LAX is...
Oh, sorry. It's a John Williams, Anyway, so yeah, the Olympics.
I didn't know that. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense why they would choose LAX to be kind of their first site for this.
Yeah, very cool. And I have to say, I don't know, I'm so easily influenced, because you talk about EVs and it's like, you never have to go to a gas station again. And you're right. You're like, yeah, you're right. I'll just charge at my house. But then it's like, well, you can charge when you're out there, and you think, it's at malls and other stuff. But he's got a really great point. I mean, think about the trips you've taken. I mean, I know you have a little one now. When I stop at the gas station, 50% of the time, it's not for gas.
Right.
Like, we're stopping to make a pit stop. The kids are screaming. They want a million things. You got to go in. The light, and true, the lighting, the safety, the environment, right? Mm-hmm. If we're really going to make EVs work, we have to bring some of that along. And it's interesting, too. Now, he didn't state this, but from the BP point of view, we talk about range anxiety, right? Well, what's better than even more BP Pulse charging stations on every corner and these larger networks, right? They would want to put more out there. So it kind of flipped my thinking of like, oh yeah, there's still a lot of value in the traditional experience of the way we fuel a vehicle right 100%, now. 100%. And you got to have both now. You got to have both.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you're on any sort of trip that's longer than, 10, 20 miles. When you stop to charge up, you want to get out. You want to stretch your legs. You want to be able to move around a little bit, maybe use a restroom or something, or get something to eat. You don't want to be cramped in your car and just, sitting there for 20 minutes while your car charges up. So it makes perfect sense.
Right, yeah. I mean, imagine trying to find a restroom without the gas station. I mean, it's the go-to. It's lit, it's there, you can go in.
Yep.
Right? And then trying to find one without it. Oh my gosh, it's like it's
about it.
Yeah, it's like a ticking time bomb. I don't want to deal with it, right? So bringing those a lot in. I liked all of the technology integration there, being able to kind of reserve your spot too, or at least fit it into where you're going to need to be, especially in those rideshare applications.
Yes, that could be huge. If I'm an Uber driver, I'm going to want to know that there is a spot waiting for me. I don't want to get there and find out that they're all taken up, or you know, 2 of them are broken or something. No, it's got to be there. It's there for me. I'm trying to make money here.
Right. Well, very good. Well, I was amped about that. This is super cool. Thanks for having me along.
I'm also amped. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time.